welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 550. And today's date is December 24th, 2014. And the title of this episode is the Current Economic Collapse News Brief. Now, before I get started, I just want to wish all those a happy holiday. Doesn't matter what holiday you are celebrating. If it's Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, or something I didn't mention, happy holidays. Have a safe, healthy holiday to every single person out there. One other announcement, there will be no report on December 25th. I will be doing a news brief on the 26th and the 27th. Let's get into the economic collapse news. Now, Europe is still struggling, and France has come out today saying that their unemployment rate has now hit new highs. France Labor Ministry has announced that the unemployment rate in the country has hit new highs in November. According to official statistics released on Wednesday, 3.488 million people claimed jobless benefits last month, with figures showing an increase of 27,400 people. The new numbers for the end of November also indicated a 0.8% rise over October data and 5.8% increase compared to the previous year. And the president has so far overseen the loss of nearly 600,000 French jobs. And we can see right now it is definitely not getting better there. In Europe, we're seeing many people protest austerity. They're sick and tired of this. And the government is just continually doing the same thing. They're taking on more debt, closing down programs, laying off people. People are losing their jobs in the government sector, in the private sector, and the IMF, the Eurozone, is out there saying, no, take more debt. Please take more debt, and that is what they're doing. And we can see all around the world, they're trying to play it up that everything is bouncing back. We're in a recovery. Things are going well, especially here in the United States. They're telling us that everything is just fine. Retail's looking fantastic. Real estate, it looks like it's rebounding. We know it's declining right now, but they're crossing their fingers, hoping that that new law that goes into effect in 2015, where there's hardly any money down on mortgages, on buying a house, and giving these mortgages to subprime. They're hoping that they can push this bubble up for a little bit longer, but we know for a fact that this is not going to help. It's going to be temporary, and eventually everything's going to start to collapse. And they're trying to convince us that manufacturing and the production here in the United States is doing well. In Europe, it's doing well. And this kind of doesn't make sense, because the Baltic Dry Index has fallen once again as of December 23rd. It has fallen to 788 points. We are getting very close to that critical level of 647 points, and this is what it reached after the Great Recession of 2008, moving into 2012, and then they pumped it all back up with free money, making it seem like everything is fine, but it looks like they can't hold on to this, and we're seeing that manufacturing is declining, things are falling apart, and every week we see the Baltic Dry Index continually falling. And again, this is raw material that factories use for manufacturing. It is very hard to manipulate, and we're following this very, very closely. Now, Standard & Poor's was out there, and they have lowered Russia's rating on their bonds. They're put it at a credit watch negative. Tuesday, it placed its BBB A3 long and short-term foreign currency sovereign ratings to BBB A2 local currency sovereign credit ratings on Russia on credit watch with a negative implication. So we can see from everything that's going on here, by dropping the oil prices, with the sanctions, they're trying to put the squeeze on Russia. They're lowering their credit rating, making it very difficult for them, and they're hoping to provoke them into war. And we can see, and we're going to have to watch exactly how Russia reacts to this situation. Do I think Putin's going to do something crazy? Absolutely not. It's not in his character. We watched him in Syria. We watched him in Ukraine. And everything that he tries to do is to promote peace. He tries to de-escalate the problem in both of these areas. And the United States government, the central bankers, all they're trying to do is pretty much create some type of instance where war can get started. And they have not stopped. Now, as we know, the government continually spies on American people. The president has not reined in the NSA spying. Actually, it has gotten worse. And right now, government and corporate entities have far too much leeway to hack into webcams in order to conduct surveillance, and laws supposedly designed to protect victims of such an intrusion are inadequate, according to a new report. The report, titled Digital Peepholes, highlights how easy it is for law enforcement and other government agencies, as well as corporations, to violate Americans' Third and Fourth Amendment rights. Constitutional guarantees should preclude the government from remotely activating webcams, given the webcams are frequently located in the home, where privacy rights are at their strongest. And this is coming from the authors of the report, from the Institute of Science, Law, and Technology at the Chicago Kent College of Law. This situation is very simple. Those people who violate our rights, guess what? They should be brought up on charges and thrown into prison. It's that simple. And if you have to do the entire organization like the NSA, that's what you do, because how else do you enforce the laws? You don't need extra laws to say don't do this. We already have one. It's called the rights of the people. There's no reason to create another law to tell them not to do it. They have one. Let's just follow it. And this is the major problem. No one is taking action on these people, and guess what? Nobody will, because everyone in the government is all in this. They're being blackmailed by the NSA, and no one has the courage to stand up and say enough is enough. Now, we understand a couple weeks ago the CIA torture report came out, and of course the corporate media was out there, the government was out there, they did their ABC, Washington Post polls, they were telling everyone that, 59% of the American public are for torture. Well, I ran the poll here on the X22Report.com site, and actually I got the opposite response, 83% no, we should not use torture, 17% said yes, we should. And we can see by many military and constitutional law experts, one being Jonathan Turley, they're saying that this is going to be a huge problem. The cost of our torture program and the failure to prosecute a single official for it, or the destruction of evidence and false statements revealed in its aftermath, will continue to cost this country dearly. Retired JAG Major Todd E. Pierce wrote last week, "To practice torture is to self-identify as a repressive police state, even if the practice is reserved only for conduct outside one's own borders. But it's just a matter of time before it spills back into domestic territory." Historically, it always has. It always has for thousands of years. Indeed, all of the facets of militarization abroad are coming home. And I said this in the other report. If we torture, and they use these polls to show that everyone is in agreement to torture, this will then shift and come here inside the United States. Before you are even convicted of a crime or anything like that, you're just suspected, they might torture you to get some information. This is exactly what they're doing to these people. They haven't been convicted of any crime. They're just suspects, and they are being tortured, and we have to be very careful with this, and we can see where this is headed. They want to bring this home. They want this to be a police state, and as we can see, they are pretty much nationalizing our police force. When we look at this and we look at the trend of how these active shooter drills have become massively federalized, officers now are receiving militarized style training funded and supervised by the U.S. Department of Justice and the government subcontractors. Since 2002, active shooter training has been conducted by a project called ALERT, Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training, housed at Texas State University in San Marcos. Over 60,000 police have been instructed by ALERT, trained personnel, and over the past 12 years, the entity has received over $30 million of funding from the Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Assistance. The money for such training is approximately $290 million and is distributed to 56 states and territories and over 1,000 local jurisdictions in 2014 alone. FBI personnel found out across the U.S. conduct the alert-approved training to local law enforcement officers. So we can see right now from everything this government is doing, they are nationalizing, federalizing the police force. They want them all to report to the government. They're getting their militarized training from the government. Why is this? What are they doing? They are getting ready to come down hard on the people of the United States. And we can see by what the government's trying to do, they're trying to take the police, separate them from the people, and make the two groups come out at each other. And this is the training for the police to not trust the people, to not be intertwined in the community. And we can see this is growing. Things have changed since 1960 to now. I reported on this yesterday, and we can see right now they're receiving a lot of money to have this type of training. Now, out in Ukraine, we understand the MH17 was shot down, and we know it was Ukraine and the United States, and this is why they're keeping all their information confidential. The United States handed over their satellite imagery, but you know what? They're going to keep that confidential. They don't need anyone to see this stuff, and the reason why they're doing this is because they have something to hide. And there was an eyewitness to the events surrounding the downing of the MH17, and they've given testimony to Russian investigators, and they used a polygraph test, and they have claimed that the Su-25 did shoot down the MH17 airplane. And they've questioned these people, they've given them a polygraph test, and it is showing that yes, it was shot down by a military plane. And of course, as we know, they're not releasing the autopsy report on the pilot, so we don't know if he was riddled with bullet holes. And of course, they're keeping this all confidential and quiet so nobody knows anything. Now, Russia has confirmed, Gazprom has confirmed, that Ukraine actually paid their 1.65 billion gas debt now. Of course, as we know, the coal supplies are very weak. They're pretty much holding back energy to many parts of the country, and they're going into a very cold winter, and they need this gas. They rather pay for the gas than have all these people pretty much protest and riot outside the government offices. Now, France is saying that they are not going to hand over those Mistral ships. Russia has given them the deadline at the end of this year. Hand over the ships or give us a refund. And it looks like France is not going to do it at this time. Now, in Ukraine, we understand they're getting ready for a major offensive in the southeastern section and Crimea. There have been talks today, and they're still going on between the southeastern people and Ukraine. They're discussing it over, discussing the Minsk deal that they have of the ceasefire. And Poland is stepping in and saying they're planning on evacuating residents of the Polish origin from high volatile Ukraine industrial area Donbass. A special delegation will go to eastern Ukrainian city of Kharkiv in the near future to prepare to aid the evacuation of their Polish compatriots. So we can see they're pulling them out. They're having the talks, and we know that Poroshenko has bringing in a lot of military assets. We understand there are soldiers being trained. We understand the U.S. has passed the Ukrainian Freedom Act, which allows the U.S. government to bring in lethal weapons, soldiers, and aid. So they are definitely preparing for something to go hot. Now, we understand in Ukraine the gold was stolen from the central bank, from the government of Ukraine. The Fed came in, the central bankers came in with an airplane late at night. Everyone was dressed in black, and they unloaded something and they loaded something else onto this plane. And then lo and behold, the gold is gone. But what's very interesting, they just didn't leave the vaults empty. They replaced it with lead bricks painted in gold, to fool everybody that the gold was still there. And right now there's an investigation going on trying to figure out where did all this gold go, and we know exactly where it went. Russia is out there saying that if Ukraine were accepted as a NATO member, it would end any relations between the alliance and Moscow, and this is coming from the Russian Defense Ministry. And here we are headed towards war, and one way to do this is to remove the block status with Russia, join them up with NATO, bring in military assets all around Eastern Europe to get ready for war. Now, out in the Middle East, we know the United States, the coalition, the United States, Israel, even though they're really not part of the coalition, the other Arab nations, they're all there flying planes, bombing Syria, bombing in Iraq, and we know that Israel flew their planes into Syria and bombed to try to help the Islamic State and the rebel forces, which is really all one and the same. Syria is out there saying that they have shot down the Skylark 1. It is a military drone that was flying, a UAV flying over Syria. The military identified the Israeli UAV as the Skylark 1, a tactical platform produced by the Elbit Systems, and they're saying it belonged to Israel, and they shot it down. Now, in Iraq, the MP there is criticizing how the U.S. is bombing inside the country, specifically Anbar and the Salahuddin areas, and they're saying that the way the United States is bombing, it's not the way they bombed in Kurdistan. It seems like they're being very careful not to hit the Islamic State, and it seems like they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're calling it the American double standard in Iraq, and are not limited to the case in point, as it also includes incidents in which American jet fighters act against the Iraqi Air Force by engaging in electronic jamming of aircraft signals. And we have to understand what's going on here. The Islamic State is a proxy army for the United States. There's also a revolution going on where the people are rising up saying we want our country back. Those are the people they are hitting. They are not hitting the Islamic State, and the Iraqi government is going after the Islamic State also, and they're most likely jamming their planes so they don't hit their proxy army. They want them just to go after those other people. And we can see, yes, they're starting to notice what is going on here, and they're starting to realize that, hey, wait a minute, they're really not hitting the Islamic State. And we've realized this in Syria, where they're hitting the infrastructure, and the Islamic State knew to get out of the area before the airstrikes hit. Now, we understand the United States is sending in more troops, but along with these troops, the advisors, the U.S. government is preparing to boost the number of private contractors in Iraq. Right now, there's about 1,800 to 2,000 private contractors, and more are headed in this area. And again, they are used just like soldiers to fight. And again, the last count we had was about 5,000. Add in the contractors, we're at 6,000. If they're sending in more contractors, maybe 1,500 to another 2,000, this will bring us up to 7,000. The Pentagon in August issued a public notice that it was seeking help from private firms to advise Iraq's Ministry of Defense and its counterterrorism services. The notice appeared intended as preparation in case military commanders need to surge contractors into Iraq. The announcement did not specify the size or cost of the proposed effort, so they're weighing this and they're going to see how many they actually need to go into the country. Now, today, the Islamic State shot down a Jordanian plane and they captured the pilot. This is a complete setup. Why are they doing this? They are getting ready to set up a no-fly zone. Now they're going to say the Islamic State has the ability to shoot down planes. We are going to have to put a buffer zone in this area. They tried once before where they were saying the Islamic State was in training to fly planes. They've captured 3 fighter jets, and then of course the Syrian government came in, pretty much destroyed them and knocked that story out. Now we have the story that they downed a plane, and this is very dangerous for the United States, for the coalition, and there will have to be a buffer zone, and we will definitely see this come up very shortly. Now, I mentioned the false flag event where the FBI gave a warning about an I-55 bridge in Memphis, Tennessee, that they might blow this up. Now, we've seen this before with the World Trade Centers where the towers were filled with asbestos, and it was going to cost billions of dollars to remove all the asbestos from these buildings. And this most likely is another reason why the towers were brought down. There are many reasons why they were brought down, and we know it was an inside job. We know there were Mossad agents dancing around. They had explosives, but they were set free. We understand there was a lot going on. Also, there were other buildings that just fell by themselves, and we know that they were brought down through demolition. And we can see right now that the I-55 bridge is going through construction. They're repairing the bridge. And this might be an opportunity to bring the bridge down because it's costing a lot of money to repair. It looks like the bridge is going to be shut down and traffic will be detoured off of this bridge. So this makes it a prime suspect to bring down this bridge. They get all the traffic off of it. They just need to set some explosives and they can blame it on the Islamic State. So we're going to have to watch that very, very carefully in the next couple of weeks. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared.